Welcome in to the FireZone. That's right. It's Dennard, Melton, MC here to talk about that spectacular game on Sunday night against the Kansas City Chiefs. Ravens coming through with the win, 36-35, back and forth, scoring all over the place, going up and down the field. You know, we talk defense on this show, Dennard, so it might not have been great from that standpoint, from a defensive coordinator's perspective, for about three and a half quarters. But then right towards the end, defense rose up and, did what they had to do. But before we chop all of that up and get into the game, how you doing, man? How you been?
I've been good. Enjoying a little bit of this lovely non-weather we're having here in Maryland. It's you know how the seasons go around here, but all in all, not too bad. It's always nice to enjoy a win like that and to hopefully calm the Ravens fans out there and let them understand that this is a marathon and not a sprint.
Yeah, we put a lot into this Chiefs game just because of what's happened the previous couple of years. And going into it with the injuries that the Ravens have had, going back to the preseason and into the start of the regular season, and even coming out of that Monday night game, they lose Ronnie Stanley, Chris Westry can't go Sunday night. And, it was looking kind of doom and gloomish among the fan base. And then, they kicked the ball off. And as Hollywood said when he was on the NFL Network, like, when you got Lamar, you've got a chance. No matter what else is going on your team, when you've got him, you've got a chance. And, it was fun, man. It was a lot of fun to watch. And I'm hoping that the fans, because I don't know if the players, I think, yeah, it was important and it meant something to them. Obviously, you could tell by their reactions, but they got 15 more to play. Whereas the fans, it was like, it was such a big thing for fans for them to finally beat the Chiefs. But for me, I'm just like, yeah, I'm glad they did it and it was exciting and all of that. But I shouldn't be this hard. I need to see it in the playoffs. I'm gonna leave it at that. I need to see it in the playoffs, right? This was good. Not taking anything away from it. This is good. This is great. But I need to see it in the playoffs.
It addresses the mental block that you couldn't beat this team.
Right.
Now it's gonna be for the marbles if you see him again.
Yeah.
But I think Buffalo's gonna have a little bit to do with that. So we'll see.
They're going to have something to say. Hey, Tyreek out there on Twitter already saying, hey, keep that same energy when we meet again.
Always and forever. Keep it.
Yep. So that's going to be fun. But let's get into looking back at this game. Like I said, it was an up and down affair from an offensive standpoint. But I guess we got to start with what I think was probably – like, there were two big storylines for me. Obviously, the last couple of drives and the turnovers, Odafe Oweh right in the middle of both of those. But the other one to me is Wink and what kind of game he called defensively. So let's start there, just kind of high level before we get into talking about individual units or players. What'd you think about the game that Wink called, the game plan that he kind of brought into this one?
I think Wink understood the assignment. I think he went in with his notepad. He understood where they had their shortcomings in the 3 games prior, because they wanted to get aggressive after Mahomes. And sometimes you can do that with quarterbacks, and they'll get off kilter enough where you can make some plays and you're never going to slow them down, but you're hoping to turn the ball over. You're hoping to get some quick points, and you're hoping to, contain them when you need to. And I think the issue was at the end of the day that they just would pick them apart. They weren't just screening them to death. They were throwing it over the top. They were, having drags all over the place. So Wink went to the drawing board, and the way you stop teams from dragging you to death is you sit in zone. So Wink was like, okay, I gotta take away their two of their three most dangerous things they can do, which is the deep ball and their drags. I gotta give up something. So he decided to give up the short balls. He decided to rely on his defense to make tackles. Now, this is also the second week of the season. So when it comes to tackling, it's going to take a couple weeks. So I wasn't terribly upset by the tackling. I was a little upset by the bad angles. But all in all, I think Wink called the game he needed to call to keep them in this type of game. Now, come December, January, it may be a different type of game. He may be able to heat him up a little bit more. But I feel like he called the right game for the right situation, the right time of the season.
Yeah, it was different than what we've seen from him, not just in the previous games against the Chiefs, as you mentioned, but just kind of his overarching philosophy of bringing pressure and bringing it aggressively. I told you before we hit record, I kind of went through and did my own charting of the game, and I think he only brought a 5-man pressure, like a called 5-man pressure, maybe twice in the whole game. Everything else, I think there was maybe 2 other times where 5 came, and I told you that might have been like an add-on situation where they were in man and the back stayed in or the tight end stayed in, so that guy came. But other than that, it was 4 and 3. 4-man rushes and 3-man rushes, and a lot of 7 in coverage, a couple times 8 in coverage, and they had this thing. I wanted to ask you about this because sometimes you can watch these TV broadcasts and the way they'll explain something, it'll make it sound like it's the first time it's ever happened in the history of football, which we know there's nothing new in football, really nothing new under the sun. People just give it new words, right? They call it new things. So Chris Collinsworth talked about these layered rushes, right? Where you would see Odafe Oweh or somebody else. I think they even had Harrison do it a couple times, but it was mostly Oweh. Kind of, go out over Kelsey when he was in the slot, kind of in some of those nasty splits, jamming, try to get a reroute on him, and then rush. I imagine you've seen that before. Not a new thing to you. But what did you think about that approach?
I wouldn't call it a layer rush. I get the idea of the layer rush because it's coming from a different platform. It's coming from the linebackers, coming from the secondary. So you want to call the layer, a layered rush or whatever you want to call it. That's fine. But at the end of the day, it's just a spy. And you're just giving the spy a little more responsibility and coverage. But his whole game plan is to keep his eyes on the quarterback, to make sure he doesn't break the chain and make something big happen. So for that particular play, we even talked about it a little bit on Twitter earlier, which was where it looked like they were in cover 3 and Kansas City came out and it looked like, a typical play where he would, Mahomes would drop back and he's looking for something. Well, this particular play, and I think the Ravens knew it was coming, which is why the coverage the way it was. They knew he was going to roll right. They knew the play. They knew that was one of their favorite plays, 3rd and long. So, yes, it was a layered approach, but it was also understanding the situation, understanding time and distance, understanding your opponent, understanding what they like to call in certain situations, and playing to those percentages. So, yes, you can call it layer rush. I call it someone decided to watch film for a long time and picked up the tendency of what that play was, and they had a particular coverage. Because if you notice, it's a little different than the the 4th and I think it was 18 hit Tariq against us back in 2019 or whatever it was in Kansas City.
Yeah.
It was the same play. They just decided to actually make it a play this time. So the idea is, and in college, we practice against teams who would do this as well, which is you've got to move the zone together on the rollout, because if one comes forward, that's what they're anticipating, and he's going to throw it right where you left. So if you're playing a team like Kansas City, we would practice that during that week, so we all understood if one leaves, we all got to replace, and we got to do it all together, because if we leave a hole, they're going to carve us up.
Yeah, you can tell from last night. It's just underscores the point that you just made, that the Ravens understood that was something that they needed to have a plan for and not just be reactive to it. Like, they'd seen it enough times to know that, hey, those are the plays in these last 3 games or 4 games, whatever it's been, where they really won the game, right?
Yep.
We've kind of gone toe to toe for most of the game, and then it's 2 or 3 of those plays, and it's those plays where he's rolling out, extending, and like you said, the zone's got to move. Some of it moves, some of it doesn't move, and you get those plays, So it's like they showed that awareness that you just talked about. Like, hey, we've got to go in with a plan for those plays, for those situations, and let's be the actor more than the reactor. Let's get him to go where we want him to go, and then be able to move the zone where we want to be able to move it, because we forced him to say that right side of the field where we know he likes to go. And now, with his arm, yeah, there really isn't any part of the field that's cut off, but even he is going to have some limitation on how far back across the field he can go. So,
right.
And look, how many teams have a 6'5", 250-pound spy? Not a lot of those dudes walking the earth.
Which is very important for this to work, because he's got to be able to contain, not bring him down, but contain him and make it a 10-point difficulty throw. I don't need heroes. I needed to make it as difficult as possible. And that's what Oweh was doing, and which is what is so important about this idea of containment rush with these type of running quarterbacks. It's not so much getting them down, it's containing the damage that they can do.
And I really like that idea. I don't want to go too far down the rabbit hole with this, but I just hearing you explain it that way. I like that idea of kind of taking back control of that and not being so reactive and saying, hey, we're going to do some things up front. And you saw him do it. I saw him do it in that game, even when they only rushed 3, where they could basically break the pocket, right? You could have a guy like Houston rushing off the right side. He starts out, at like a 5 technique or maybe a little bit wider, and then just, splits the right tackle and the right guard. And he's trying to break the pocket, right? Intentionally to get Mahomes to go out to the right. And then if you've coordinated that with your zone coverage on the back end so that they know, okay, here's what they're going to do in scramble drill. We've seen enough of this that we kind of have an idea of what they do. Now we can coordinate our coverage with that on the front end. And now you've kind of taken back control of that situation a little bit. Look, your guys still got to, they got to plaster and all that. But yeah, but at least now you're not just out there totally reacting and not really, having a feel for what's going to happen. You've kind of set the stage a little bit. And I like that. I like that a lot, actually.
What the fun part is the next time they face them, what's Kansas City's answer?
Yeah, because now there's got to be.
And I know I can tell you what the answer is going to be.
Okay.
Most likely, it's going to be a throwback screen, and it's going to eat somebody up. It's going to eat someone up.
Well, I don't like the sound of that. I don't want to see anybody getting eaten up.
It's coming. Be prepared because someone else is going to copy that defense. Most likely Oakland, someone in their division is going to copy that, and you're going to see it materialize. You'll be like, "Oh, yeah, your back door better be prepared."
Yeah, because you can see they already have that play, and they've got a couple of other like similar concepts, like in terms of Mahomes rolling out one side, and really it's intentional, right, to go out to that side and then throw back the other way. He had one of those to Hardman that Brandon Stevens got back kind of over the top of, and at least was able to challenge the throw a little bit. But they did a little stalk and go with Hardman. They had Tyreek coming around on the end around from the right side. Hardman was over there on the left, and he kind of faked the stalk block for Tyreek on the end around, and then he goes vertical. I think they were playing cover 2 to that side, so Averitt was down, and he's looking at the quarterback, and now there goes Hardman, and you could see Averitt, communicating, pointing back to Stevens like, "Hey, get."
Yeah, I remember that. Yep, like no.
Yeah, and Stevens gets back there because Hardman. I mean, he's not Tyreek, but he's legit fast.
Yes, yes.
He can roll. So that was impressive to see Brandon Stevens go back there. I know he had, people may remember the missed tackle and kind of took a bad angle. Was that the Kelsey play that he did, or was the Pringle? Or was it the Byron?
It was Pringle, but he's also involved in the Kelsey one. Was a little bit worse than the Pringle one. I can give him a little bit of a pass in the Pringle one because that was one of the blitzes that Wink brought against empty, and you really need to check out of 5-man pressures, especially if you're going to be in zone. That's what happens. So got caught in the back haul, couldn't get out of it. Those things do happen. Once again, Kansas City gets paid.
Yeah. So let's go through some of the position groups. I thought that was kind of cool that we did that with the Raiders game. It kind of allows us to capture all the different things that were going on in the game, and then also kind of highlight some individual players. So we'll start up front on the D line. Like we said, a lot of 4-man rushes, even some 3-man rushes in this one. And, I don't know that this always comes to mind when people think about Patrick Mahomes, because you think about how much he throws the ball and how many yards they put up that way. But he is a guy who can scramble and can do some things with his legs. So do you think that was a factor at all in this 4-man rush situation too? It's like, yeah, obviously we're trying to get rush and want to see guys get home, but you also kind of have to be under control a little bit because he can get out and he can do some things.
Yes. You have to keep his mind thinking. You're not going to outthink Mahomes. What you're going to be able to do is make him hesitate just for a half second. That's all you need. Him to half think it, maybe turn his arm a little bit differently and the ball flutters. Like that's the fine margins where we are against Kansas City. When you play like teams like that, is you are literally looking for the difference, just like Sunday night, 1 point. You're literally looking for a field goal ending. You're looking to have the ball. You're looking to be able to just put yourself in a position in those types of games where it's just one play, because that's where it's going to come down to, and to do those things that are necessary to create those situations in your favor.
And I think the other thing we talked earlier about how Wink kind of dialed back how much pressure he called. I think they were also pretty static up front in their looks too. You didn't see a whole lot of, 6, 7 guys up, guys coming up, guys dropping out. Like I said, I looked at the passes and the runs, but I think there were like 29 dropbacks. They were in either an over front. I think I had 18 of those in an under a couple times. And a couple times they had that odd kind of front where they had Campbell over the center and Houston, and sometimes it was most of the time it was Oweh, but sometimes it was McPhee at DN, and then they had a fourth guy who they could bring, but a lot of times he was just basically playing, like you said, a spy, or he was like a rat, like a low hole rat or something like that. So they were pretty static that way too. There wasn't a whole lot going on up front with those looks, because I think, to your point, it was kind of like, hey, let's simplify. You talked about that last week going into this game. Let's just simplify this thing so that guys can get lined up right and be in position to cover these dudes, right, and do what we need to do.
Like, you don't have, and that's the beautiful part of what Wink did, and what people need to understand about when offenses get complicated, on defense, you need to become uncomplicated. You have to be so basic that everything the offense is doing and window dressing, everything is sort, you just stand there and look at them like, sooner or later, you're going to have to come at me. And I'm going to be prepared for it. I'm not going to worry about the jet sweeps. I'm not going to worry about this. I'm not going to worry about that. You may get 12 yards there. You might get 13 yards there. But you're not going to gash me for 60. You're not going to continually pound me for 7 yards off right tackle like they've done in the past. Like, no, I'm going to sit here. I'm going to sit in my 4-man front. I'm going to rotate my Justins, my Campbells, my Williams, my Ellis, who I told you before, I think he played a very good game stepping in for Brandon Williams. I think his body type has changed.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he's gotten into better shape. And I think being around the Ravens for a couple years, he's turned into something that I don't think a lot of people thought he was capable of, which is being a quality backup for Williams. So kudos to him. He's really stepped up in the last couple weeks. Obviously Oweh, seriously, like, sky's the limit for him. It pays to have basketball moves in football. It's different. And we talked about this earlier. We talked about how maybe he needs to incorporate more bend into his pass rush and things of that sort. And I kind of told you it's kind of the Lamar effect. It's let him do what he do, and then let us build a defense around someone who's possibly a generational talent.
Yep.
And you kind of saw that in the Ed Reed days. They pretty much built that secondary around what Ed Reed liked to do. I would say for the most part, after Suggs decided he actually wanted to play football after the 5th year, I think they decided to build a defense around him. So it's not unheard of for the Ravens to do it, but I think Oweh may be that type of talent where you can really just move him anywhere and everywhere up and down the line. And people are going to have to identify who he is, which in turn will open up Bowser's opportunities on the backside to make even bigger and better plays.
And you kind of saw some of that on those 2 turnovers. So, on the interception that Tavon picked off, it was one of those plays where he started out a line over Kelsey, right, out in the slot a little bit, jams him, reroutes him. Then, he's kind of in that contain role that you were talking about. And, the other guys who were rushing did enough to break the pocket and force Mahomes to kind of climb and try to step up and be able to get the throw off. And then as he's climbing and sliding up, there's Oweh, right? And Oweh's wrapping him up around his legs. And Mahomes kind of almost uncharacteristically, still tries to make a throw as he's going down. And of course, it's off target and Tavon picks it up. So you could see kind of an example of what you were talking about with Oweh, kind of building around, hey, let's put him in that position. There's nobody else on our team who can do that, right? Who can go out and jam this tight end and then get back and still be in a position to spy the quarterback and make a play on him. And then the same thing with the fumble. I got to give it up to my boy, Pernell McPhee, because he's in on that play. And it's just a zone play. I think it was like their mid-zone play or something like that. And, he's got the combo coming to him, the center and the left guard coming to him. And he plays behind, that left guard, is trying to reach him. Just, a lot of that's not unheard of. I mean, it's kind of a known thing to do, play behind those blocks. But in doing that, it freed up Oweh just for that split second because Orlando Brown had to go out and block. I think it was Chris Board who kind of lined up, who was up on the line, up on the ball outside of Oweh. And so now just that split second, right, where Oweh doesn't have anybody on him and he's got a free run at the back. And he literally just reaches out and snatches the ball out of the back.
Literally.
And gets it while he's on the ground. Picks it up himself. So
Big
those
plays,
those two plays, you could kind of see, hey, let's do some things to put this guy in a position to use the special ability that he's got, this unique physical ability, right? Whereas you could be stubborn and do what I was talking about. Come on, man, Ben, you got to get low. You got to get lower. Or you can say, hey, let's just use what this dude already does well, and we'll craft everything else around him, so that we can get the most out of him. So we'll go to linebacker now. And I know that you had some thoughts about the guys this week, particularly Malik Harrison, but also, start with Patrick Queen, because I think, there's kind of an up and down thing. At least the sense that I get from the fan base with him. It's like some weeks they're high on him, and other weeks they're down a little bit on him. What did you see from the linebackers?
Queen was better than he was last year. He wasn't lost. He wasn't running around with his head chopped off. Basically because the Ravens decided not to blitz all the time. And they couldn't run their screen game. They couldn't run all their drags and stuff. So that really helped him see everything. He was running to the football. He was making plays. It's very hard. I will say this as a linebacker in games like this. It is very hard to get involved. It's very hard to put your stamp on a game like this because it's not physical per se. It's a little spread out. It's a little dink and dunk. It's tackling practice, and it kind of sucks sometimes as a linebacker because the tight end is going to do this 6-yard face out, and he's more or less going to beat you because he's got outside leverage, and it irritates you. So you start kind of guessing. You start kind of trying to play a finesse game, and most linebackers are not very good at it. You saw kind of Malik Harris really struggle because he started trying to see what was going on in the backfield because he wasn't really getting true reads up front in his eyes. But that was his first exposure to a lot of the little weird quirks that Kansas City does up front with their linemen because they don't really give you true zone looks. They don't really give you true this. There's always an 80% chance that it's going that way. But Andy Reid, that something else is going on in his mind that he's setting up for later. So you start overthinking stuff. So yes, Malik Harrison had a bad day at the office. He got exposed in terms of coverage. But I think I like how the Ravens responded in the second half. They decided to get him off the field and let Board take care of Kelsey, which seemed like it kind of stemmed the tide a little bit. So good on Chris Board coming in, stepping in, making big plays, kind of stepping in their role. I do expect Harrison to be more involved this week because, Detroit does run the football. Their team is very much centered around their two running backs. So I think he'll have a bigger impact in that type of game coming up this week.
Yeah, and it's nice, right? As if you're, defensive coordinator, to have that kind of flexibility with the guys in that room where you have a guy like Malik Harrison who, think back to the Titans playoff game last year, he's built for that game, right? That's the game that Malik Harrison is built from when there's going to be a lot of run. That's the game that he's probably going to excel in. And then you have a guy like Chris Board, if you get into kind of more of this 7-on-7, almost, kind of space kind of, he's probably going to be a little bit better in that kind of environment. So it's nice to kind of have that flexibility. Before we jump to the DBs real quick, Tyus Bowser, I want to get your thoughts on him. We talked about him really throughout the preseason and even into that first game. Like it's been quiet. You haven't really heard much. And I know earlier you were saying you thought that was a good thing, right? That just meant he's doing his job. You know, you're not hearing about him being exposed in any kind of way or anything about that. What do you think about him in this game, in this Chiefs game?
He was quiet again, but I think once again he's kind of in a game like this. He's kind of in a little bit of limbo because he's not effective enough in pass coverage in terms of the quick game. He's not. Bowser's very good in coverage, but he's better as coverage progresses because he's so nimble, he's so athletic, he understands routes coverages, so he's going to be able to take care of those deep in routes, those deep, out routes, those types of things. Not very many linebackers are going to be involved in the short game. It's hard. So Oakland, a lot of short stuff, a lot of screens, draws, things of that sort. Kansas City, same thing. So very hard for him to get involved. So not pressing the panic button, but I think the Ravens defensively need to get him involved. So if that's a stunt, if that's a blitz that's just set up for him, something to get him not so much motivated or get him rolling, just to help the confidence along, because he is playing that position full time for the first time.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit of growth into that. So once again, good thing we're not hearing about him, because that means teams are not running at him. He's holding his own. He's doing what he needs to do on the general stuff. So hopefully as the season kind of progresses, he'll continue to grow and he'll step into that role a little bit bigger.
And we'll finish up with the DBs. Tough job, tough task going into this game for the defensive.
Yes.
Very tough task. And, you're going in shorthanded. Obviously, Peter's out beginning of the year. We knew he was out for the whole year, but you come into this game, still don't have Jimmy Smith. Lose Chris Westry from the Raiders game to this game. So you go in, you don't have him. Lose Deshaun Elliott in this game. And so you're at a point where you've got really three true corners in Averitt, Humphrey, and Tavon. And you've got Stevens, who obviously played corner in college and played some in this game. They had Ardarius Washington, who was up for this game. I think he only got on the field for one snap. And then, safeties, you got Clark and even Geno Stone got some run. And then Stevens obviously, played some there too. Just, again, we talked about Brandon Stevens and the flexibility that he brings. Even if, there's maybe going to be some mistakes on some plays, just the fact that the guy can play at so many different spots.
Keep throwing them out there.
Yeah. But what do you think about the defensive backs? I mean, obviously, you're going to give up some yards against this Kansas City team in the passing game. That's just kind of how it is.
Tackle. That's the name of the game when the ball starts getting thrown all over the place. And like I said at the beginning of the show, that will come. But Stevens in particular needs to bring his feet. It will solve a lot of his problems, and that will come with time. I think the corners played their responsibilities. I think everyone understood the assignment, which was keep everything underneath and tackle. Don't get beat over the top. Tackle. Anything that is under 20-yard gains is wins. And if we can keep doing that, hopefully we can, get a mistake here and there. And I saw a stat the other day that Mahomes before this game was 11-0 and was in September and had yet to throw a pick in September.
Yeah.
Like you're playing with fire. if you keep blitzing this man. So, like I said, I think the secondary really stood on their head. I think Geno Stone really came in and does what Geno Stone was brought here to do, which is make tackles and play cover two. That's what he does best. That's what he can do. And he did it very, very well. So I'm okay with it. I'm hopeful Jimmy comes back to kind of add to the rotation. I think it's very important that Brandon Stevens continues to get quality snaps. I think they're going to need him at the end of the year. I mean, right now it's either him or Stone starting in free safety coming up this week with Deshaun Elliott most likely out with the concussion. So we're shuffle the dial again. So we're going to see. But I think good thing is, and we'll hopefully get into this later in the week about Detroit, but Detroit's offense is an offense where you can get healthy. We'll just say that.
Yeah, I got you. I understand exactly where you're going
if you come to play and you come to play like you played against Kansas City, you can get healthy.
Hey, before we leave the DBs and close out the show, let me shout out Anthony Averitt. I think he played another solid game. You and I talked about that one snap late in fourth quarter, 3rd and 9, 1-on-1 against Tyreek. He gets the PBU. Big confidence booster, I think, for him. You can see him kind of out there just being more comfortable. Now that he kind of has a regular role, and he's been healthy. Knock on wood, he's been healthy so far, and I'm really encouraged by the way that he's played over these first 2 games. He plays it safe. I will say that he plays it safe, tries to keep things in front of him, tries to stay in phase with wide receivers. Not really a risk taker per se. Like we talked about a play we were sharing in DMs with Tavon, right? Where Tavon's kind of channeling his inner Marcus Peters. And those guys though, they are playmakers, right? And so they're gonna take some risks. They're calculated risks because they trust what they see, and their study and their preparation. But they are still, risks at times. Whereas I don't think Averitt is at that point. Maybe he doesn't get to that point. Maybe that's just not his mentality as a player. That he's just going to kind of do his job and play things a little closer to the vest. But man, he is close to being able to kind of step into that playmaker role in some situations. I think because he's got all the athletic ability you want. And for me, with him, it's always just been a matter of believing in yourself, believing that you can make those plays in games, because I think he can. And, obviously we're not at practice, but I wouldn't be surprised if he's making plays in practice. And it's just like, come on, everybody sees it. Everybody knows that you have this in you. We just, if you get it in that game, go ahead.
It's just so funny because the way you say that is if you look at the history of Alabama corners when they initially come out, they're all built that way. They're all built, keep it in front and punish. Keep it in front and punish. And Marlon Humphrey has turned that into keep it in front and I'm going to take the ball from you. Anthony Averitt is getting closer. If you really pay attention to Anthony Averitt's kind of career, he was very, like you said, very conservative. Always seemed to be a half yard away from making a play. Always kind of a step behind or something along those lines. Like you said, almost like he didn't have the confidence to do it. Well, like you said, this year he's closed that gap. Now he's on top of the receiver. Now it's just that matter of, is he ready to make plays? Now he's there. Now it's a mindset, and maybe that Tariq play is what says, okay, I can go out there, not just put one hand in front of it, put my foot in the ground, step in front of that ball, and take it the other way.
Yeah, I love what I heard a coach say once about guys who have that playmaking instinct. He said, look, I can put you in position to make plays, but I can't make it for you. You got to make the play. And he's like, some guys have that instinct and you just see it. He's like, instantly when you watch them, you don't have to watch a whole game. You could watch a handful of plays and you see it. They just have it. And, sometimes it can take times for guys to develop the confidence, like that can be in them. That instinct can be in them, but the confidence to like, just do it. Like you said, stick your foot in the ground, go get that thing. It can take
that one shot. If you take that one shot, it's like when I saw Brandon Stevens, the highlights of him on when he got drafted. I was like, as soon as he did that step turn and went up and found the football, you don't have to tell me another thing. Like that's you don't teach that type of ball instinct. And Averitt has it in him. It's just been coached out of him. And the Ravens have been trying to coach it back in him for the last couple years.
Yeah, and with Stevens, the thing that I hope, and he doesn't strike me as the kind of guy that would have this issue, but I hope that he doesn't lose that confidence. Obviously, he has it. Like you said, you saw it. I hope that, having a few mistakes, in a game, I hope it doesn't get him too down on himself. Because I love that about him, that he came to the table with that confidence, right? He brought it with him. So keep it, keep it. It's easy to say, but I can imagine it's got to be tough, in some of those moments.
But he can always lean on the fact that this man decided to take his own future in his hand and say, I'm leaving UCLA as a running back, and I'm going to walk on to SMU as a corner and get myself drafted. Like, he always has that to lean on to understand where he came from to make sure he doesn't lose that confidence.
Yeah, leaving that scholarship, that ain't no joke.
That ain't no joke. Hey, you roll the dice.
Having enough confidence and belief in yourself that, hey, I can walk on at this team at a different position and I'll earn a scholarship. I'll make them offer me a scholarship. And he did. So, you're right. You're probably right. To have that kind of confidence, you're not going to lose that by having a couple rough plays in a game. It's a great point. It's a great point. All right. Well, unless you got anything else, we can go ahead and close this one down on the Chiefs game. Ravens got the Lions coming up this Sunday. Regular game. I think it's a 1:00 game. I'd have to double check the schedule. But road game, out of conference. Playing a Lions team that's coming off a Monday night game, a Monday night loss, so they're on short rest. They're 0-2. Those kneecap biters, they might be hungry, man. They're not trying to go to 0-3. But I know that they're dealing with issues too. They've got injuries and they've got some problems of their own to deal with. So hopefully we can get into that game a little bit later in the week and kind of take a deeper look at that. But for this one, I'll kick it back to you one last time. Anything else you want to do before we kind of close up the Chiefs?
Nah, it was a great win and continue to build, continue to just put one foot in front of the next and understand that everyone's got to continue to learn this defense, and it's going to be different as we go along the season, because I just have this feeling that they're going to understand who they have with Oweh and Queen and Harrison and all these guys, and figure out how to truly use them. Like they couldn't do that last year because of COVID. So having everybody in the building, and I'm excited to see where this goes.
I'm right there with you. So, hey, look, as always, thanks everybody for tapping in. Thanks everybody for watching. Thanks for watching. Thanks for everybody listening to the audio pod. Like, subscribe, click that notification button, download, interact with us on Twitter. All of the our Twitter handles will be in the show description, so you can find them there. You can always hit us up. And anybody who has followed or even just tweeted at Dennard has already found out that he's going to engage with you. You come to the table with reasonable, not irrational kind of takes or questions or comments. He's definitely going to interact and going to engage with you. We don't need to deal with no craziness though. So if that's you, if you're that kind of person out there on Twitter, then miss us with that, okay? Because we're not really gonna get down with any of that. But everybody else, thank you.
Please know the assignment. Yes, please know the assignment.
Please know the assignment. We appreciate you all. And hey, look, be good. And until next time, hey, we're on to Detroit.